Entering the atmosphere in T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Omega Metroid Podcast from OmegaMetroid.com. My name is Andy Spiteri, back after a week off, reunited with my pal and yours, Doominal Crossing. What's up, Doom?
I'm doing pretty good, Andy. Had a lovely Thanksgiving with the family. We're back on the grind set, and it's already December. Christmas, I feel like, is... it's we just had Thanksgiving, now Christmas is happening. It feels like it's right around the corner.
Who's we? I know, right? I feel like that's so wild. I was at work today and I was talking to people. I'm like, yeah, good God, it's December the 2nd. So, which is actually cool because I feel like every day that ticks by, it's the closer that we get to that Switch 2 reveal, which I gotta believe by definition, closer that we get to seeing more Metroid Prime 4, which I'm super excited about.
Yeah, there's a lot of people in the Discord that don't agree with us, including Dak. I am insanely confident that is going to be a cross-gen title. I'm like to the point where it's honestly not even like a worry in the back of my mind. But I don't know. We won't know until the magic day. But yeah,
Nintendo has done foolish things before with this Metroid series. So I mean, we don't know, but we're all waiting to find out more. That's thank you for hosting last week too. Seemed like a fun episode. We wanted to give Doom his Dak and I had our version of ranking echoes, and Doom and his friends had theirs. So it seemed like a kind of a fun party episode to tune into. I didn't get a chance to listen to it yet. I was as I was telling you know this, and some of our Discord users and patron users know this as well. And this makes me sound like I'm like 100 years old. But I had gout in my foot the last week, which is just like the absolute worst thing to have in your body. It sucks so much. So I appreciate you covering for me there. I wanted to give a special shout out today before we start this episode to a very special person. My wife, Samantha, who not only, she's actually a patron of ours times 2. She signed up with 2 different emails of ours, which I found out. But I mean, first and foremost, she had to drive my ass to like the doctor, and basically she's been doing everything for me while I'm on one leg. But also, Sam and I were able to finish a Super Metroid puzzle, which looks really, really cool. And now I got to buy a frame and get it done. But she also did a podcast about Metroid with me, and she doesn't know anything about Metroid. We had a guest cancellation on the Great Metroid Area Ranking, and I almost messaged you, Doom, but I was like, you know what? It's Thanksgiving. I can't bother, Doom. Sam and I are going to do this. And I thought we had a damn good episode, actually. It was a lot of fun. So anybody out there that, part of our Patreon or not, consider signing up if you're not. But we had a really good episode talking about an area pretty near and dear to you, actually, Chozo Ruins, amongst a couple other cool ones as well.
Chozo, was this the Zero Mission Chozo Ruins or the Metroid Prime Chozo Ruins? Metroid Prime, gotcha.
Prime.
Okay,
we did talk about criteria from Zero Mission and
gotcha.
The GFS. Okay, you got to settle this for us. How would you say GFS Thoth from AM2R? Would you say Thoth? Would you say Toth? How do you say that?
I'd probably say Thoth. It's THOTH, right?
Yeah, that's what we said, but it felt wrong. I don't know.
Yeah, that's how. I don't know. I need to look that up. I want to see if that's enough. But yeah, with absolutely no knowledge of that word, I would assume Thoth, but now I'm curious to look that up after we are finished recording.
Yeah, I looked and I still don't know, so I don't know if we butchered it.
As the pronunciation stickler, I am very curious now.
Well, we are coming to a close, so it is in fact the month of December, which means that the 20th anniversary of Metroid Prime 2 Echoes has come and passed. But we got one more episode on tap to kind of send it out in style, and that is Mapping Metroid. We're going to be focusing on the Torvus Bog today. Now, there's one thing that I want to let everybody know listening to this episode. There's going to be a little change in the Omega Metroid release schedule here. And this is going to be a permanent change. We decided that this was just for the best. Previously, we have released all of our episodes on Tuesdays. And as you may or may not have noticed in the last couple months, some of those have been, they've been sneaking out to Wednesday, because a lot of times, like, Mondays isn't really good for Dak. A lot of times, Mondays aren't necessarily the friendliest day for me or Doom either. So we decided, you know what, let's just make it permanent. We're going to start releasing our episodes on Wednesdays. So not Tuesdays. So every Wednesday, that is when your new OMP is dropping.
Yeah, this was just kind of an across-the-board thing that we all agreed was just kind of for the best. When more than half of our episodes are going out on Wednesdays anyways, we figured, like, let's just centralize this all to one specific day.
Yeah.
Make it easier for the viewers so that, they're not second-guessing or in case we forget to make an emergency reminder that it's getting delayed. Let's just make it easier for everyone across the board, for us and you, the viewers, as well.
Yeah, so I don't imagine that most people are going to be too shocked or disturbed by this news, but if you don't see any podcasts dropping on Tuesdays from now on, well, that is why. So without further ado, let's get into our last, for now, episode focused on Metroid Prime 2 Echoes. Let's dive into the Torvus Bog. I kind of feel like when we talk about areas in Metroid Prime 2, as it should be, but like the immediate focus is like Sanctuary Fortress. This area is like top tier. It's like it gets all the attention, it gets all the love, and it's easy to see why. But I kind of feel like Torvus Bog gets a little, I don't know, like underserved in that sense as well, because I actually think that this is like a really great Metroid area. I mean, not on the same level, at least for me, as Sanctuary Fortress, but like one that has a lot of like really cool stuff going on in it. I feel like maybe it gets slept on a little bit.
I think it's a pretty popular area in the Metroid community. Obviously, like, Sanctuary Fortress is the area, but I feel like Torvus is pretty popular as well. At least on the last episode, that Metroid guy was saying it was their favorite area in the whole game. So definitely, we got a lot of perspective. Yeah. So we definitely got a lot of positivity from that, at least. But yeah, I'm a big fan of Torvus Bog as well. Obviously, Sanctuary Fortress is like, I don't even know if calling it my favorite area in Metroid is like enough. It's probably like my favorite thing ever, as I said on the podcast. I absolutely just love that Sanctuary Fortress exists in a piece of fiction altogether. But yeah, Torvus Bog is also a really cool area. It combines a lot of the naturalistic and artificial elements of Metroid that I love all together in one area. The surface area, you kind of have the more, the grasslands, the trees, and all that, with a little bit of like those artificial outposts, and then you go into the bottom of the catacombs where it really gets artificial, but you even do have a little bit of those natural land formations kind of sneaking their ways back into the tunnel. And then you have the Dark Ether version where you just have all these weird, creepy, disgusting H.R. Geiger influence as well, which I also really like in Metroid.
Yeah, and I guess worth pointing out, obviously, so this is going to be a mapping Metroid on Torvus Bog and Dark Torvus Bog. So we'll kind of be talking, one and the same almost between the two of them. But yeah, I think that's where I wanted to start, actually, is the layout of this area, because I think it's a pretty cool. It almost reminds me a little bit, and not just because of the music, but like of Brinstar from Super Metroid, which is like very kind of like segmented into the top half, which is like this kind of like lush and happy, bright kind of area. And then like as you get a little bit lower, it's more creepy. It's more, and in Super Metroid, it's more organic, actually. Like there's lots of poisonous worm creatures and stuff like that. This one, it's a little bit more mechanical, but I think you're right. It still kind of has that organic feel to it in a sense. And I think that the structure, particularly of the Subterranean level, is just like so cool. It's like this giant, like it almost looks like a Halo ring. Like it is like a ring, and there's like all these interconnected rooms, but like a big spire, almost like you're in the water temple from Ocarina of Time. I feel like the Subterranean portion is really, really cool, and one that I like really look forward to going to pretty much every time I fire up Echoes.
Yeah, I would argue the subterranean portion might be amongst the series' best water levels. I would argue. My only real critique of it, and it's less to do with the area itself, but more so the and I talked about this during the last episode as well, but I feel like I really wanted more from the gravity boost. Not just in this area, but Echoes as a whole as well. Because I think like this little hover ability that you get would have been so much fun to like really utilize in this area in particular. But you don't really get that many opportunities to use it. It has very slim pickings, if you will. But again, that's less of a critique of the area, more so just the ability you get in said area.
I think I would have a critique as well, but it's not like a critique of the area. Again, it's kind of just more a mechanic in that like it's really like tough to see before you get the gravity boost in water. And I get why they did it, but I don't think they should have or needed to do that. That'd be my critique as well, but I that's a pretty easy one to overlook for me. I would say I can't say that I think Torvus Bog, like the Subterranean, is my favorite water level, but it's gotta be. I mean, it's gotta be number 2 or 3.
Yeah, like I said, it's up there. I don't know if it would be my number 1, but it's up there for sure. It's in the consideration.
It's definitely in the top tier, yeah, for sure. I mean, but take that for what you will, because I'm one of those freaks that would have like Meridia right up there too. So
emphasis on freak.
Yes. Okay, really quick sidebar, but I did a run of Super Metroid for a project that we got coming up here. I love Meridia, man. It's so awesome. I love the music. I love the area. If you know what to do, it's such a cool area. So I gotta defend it where I can. But yeah, like I just think that there's something about like, especially like seeing the map of the Subterranean level with like the connected and like the boosts that get you from area to area. I just think it's really cool, and it's kind of like a perfect blend of organic and mechanical that I think when Metroid does that, there's a really good sweet spot that Metroid often hits between organic and mechanical, and I think that Torvus Bog like really does a great job. And that's not to undersell the upper portion as well, which just has some like very beautiful kind of vistas and beautiful like lush trees, but you could tell that it's a damaged area as well. Like it used to be a forest and now it's a bog. I kind of love all of that stuff.
Yeah, like that's the thing. There's a lot more going on. It's not just the forest area or the underwater area. Like there's all sorts of different like storytelling devices happening like throughout the area. Like, you know, you have like all this, you know, equipment and machinery, and so you could tell like this was once used to be a luscious forest. Then the meteor struck and flooded it. And then after that, the Luminoth also built an outpost. And then that outpost was also captured. And so there's like all these different like storytelling devices. And again, that's just when you're on the surface. You know, there's even more stuff happening once you actually go below and you see like all of, you know, those additional mechanical elements happening.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course you have, you know, those parallels in Dark Ether, which is really cool too. And yeah, I feel like a lot of the Echoes environments have that kind of multi-layered environmental storytelling that I really appreciate.
Yeah, and let's talk about Dark Torvus Bog here for a second as well, because like I feel like, again, I'd probably say that the Ing Hive is my favorite like dark area, but this one's probably second as well. And one thing that I think that the Dark Torvus Bog does, which is really cool, is it lets you go underwater a little bit more, or like under acid or whatever that's supposed to be. I feel like that's always something that I really dig about Dark Torvus Bog. Well, actually, just about Dark Aether in general, is like when you can actually, like when you get the light suit and you could submerge yourself into like the water. I felt like that was really cool. One thing I, of course, don't love about Dark Torvus Bog, I feel like there's a lot of Hunter Ing here, like in particular, and those enemies are just like so awful in this game.
Definitely, I would probably still consider them my least favorite enemy in the game. I will say I had an easier time with them than I remember having on any of my other playthroughs.
Okay.
But yeah, I think they're more just annoying than difficult, just because like I'm not ever worried about dying to them, but just the way they constantly phase in and out, like unless you like are able to trap them in a light crystal. Like it can take a little bit. I usually just prefer to just run past them and not even bother with them.
Yeah.
But
you know, I will say, actually, we were talking about the Annihilator beam a couple weeks ago. that is like where the Annihilator Beam really comes in clutch, is
Yes.
drawing those enemies over. So we do got to give some props to that beam. But I agree though. I think I'd still say the res bits are more annoying, but these are second place. I feel like in the game for sure. Well, I wanted to talk about like maybe some specific rooms here that I like, and I'm sure probably we have a couple of the same ones as well. Did you have any off the top of your head that you want to talk about that just kind of stick out to you in Torvus Bog or Dark Torvus Bog?
Yeah, so I literally not, I guess technically not the first room you enter, but like, you know, the Torvus Lagoon, where, you know, that first cutscene appears, kind of like the main room that you enter. I just think is really cool with the way that's set up, and how you constantly return to that room to, like, you know, lift the bridge and unhinge the gates to make your way through various areas, and soon, you know, you have all these paths open up where you can go to, like, you know, 3 different areas. But yeah, I like kind of like how you come through the room at different angles to, like, unlock it through when you enter Torvus during your first trip. I think that's awesome. I want to say, oh, what's it called? I want to say it's like Torvus Plaza, where you have this really cool spider ball puzzle that'll get you an energy tank, and there's those I can't remember what they're called, but they're the piranha plants that will like try to grab you in morph ball form, or they'll spit the needles at. Yeah, and there's like 3 of them, or 2 or 3 of them, that you have to dodge while you're doing the spider ball puzzle. Really sick spider ball puzzle, but those enemies can definitely be annoying if you don't know what you're doing.
they can. That's the room that you kind of start off on a higher ledge. You could drop off. There's little pools of water, and then you go back up. Am I thinking of the right spot? It's like a narrow room that kind of like is a winding hallway almost.
So in Dark Ether, it's the half pipe room right before the Boost Guardian with the Dark Temple key. But in the Light Ether version, there's a spider ball puzzle that'll get you that energy tank.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, that is a cool room. It's Plaza Access. So
Plaza
Torvus
Access.
Plaza, yeah. Shout out to the Metroid Prime games, by the way, for naming their rooms. I can't tell you how much
Yes.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I think that's like a super cool area. I was gonna say like Torvus Lagoon as well. Just like it kind of reminds me almost of like Phendrana. Like when you walk in, it's not the first room, but when you finally hit Phendrana Plaza and you see the title, that was kind of the same vibe that I got the first time that I ever went into Torvus Lagoon. One area that I wanted to shout out that I think is a really, really like awesome looking room is Torvus Grove. And that's the one that has like, I don't think it's like a big tree in the center, but it has like a couple trees like in and around. It's this ginormous room. There's a portal in there. It's the room that has that energy tank that's kind of like off the map and to the side, and you need to jump in and actually you need to screw attack to the platform in order to get there. I think it's just like a really, really cool looking room. I'm pretty sure there's a missile expansion hidden in one of those trees as well. It's just like kind of it's got the grandeur that I look for in an area. The only thing I don't like is that you're always accosted by flying troopers every time that you go in there, which is kind of annoying, or dark troopers or whatever they are.
I know you face the regular pirate commandos, the non-dark versions, the first time you enter.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember if you get accosted there on return trips though. Although again, I don't mind the dark. You just fire your dark beam missile. They're done.
Yeah.
I don't get the hate against the dark commandos. Honestly, I know
Dark
they're everyone's
commandos.
least favorite enemy. Yeah.
You know what? They're number 3. Yeah, maybe they'd even be lower, to be honest with you. They're no Hunter Ing and they're no Resbits, that's for sure. But yeah, I feel like this is just like a super, super cool room. So this room is memorable to me. I can't say that it's like my favorite because I feel like I always get tripped up here. But the Forgotten Bridge, the room where like you have to move the stupid bridge and you have to go to Dark Aether, and the spinner is like phasing in and out of reality. So and like not only that, but I feel like I always fall off, and then you have to like go the long way to get back up to get to the portal. And I always think every time I play this game that there's a portal in here, and every time I'm there, I'm like, okay, I just need to go to this room and I can access the portal and get back to I think it's one of them. It's either light aether or dark aether. It must be dark aether. And I'm just like, oh wait, I can't access it. I can't like reach it up here. You know what room I'm talking about, or which portal?
Not off the top of my head. I know. Yeah, because Forgotten Bridge, you can access the portal in that room because you go in, you turn on the bridge, then you go back to the light world, and then you continue across the bridge.
It's something in that. There's one portal in that room which just like drives me nuts because I feel like every time I look at my map, I'm like, okay, I should be able to get this, but I can't.
Are you talking about the missile expansion?
No,
that's like in that one that it's like in the morph ball tunnel.
No, it's like I'm 100% sure it's a portal. I should have done some research here to see what exactly it was, but what's the dark version of this room too? Let me try and find it on our map. But anyways, so like the bomb slot or whatever, like that's in flux. There's a portal somewhere in here, and like you could never. I feel like I always mess it up when I go into this room. So I wanted to shout out that room as well for being not my friend. So Dark Forgotten Bridge and Forgotten Bridge, they both have portals, but I feel like that portal is like consistently hard to get to. Maybe it's just me. It could be a user error, but I had to shout out the Forgotten Bridge because it's given me some troubles before.
There's a set of like, you can space jump across like the platforms right to it. I don't know, unless I'm thinking of a completely different room, but like, yeah, but if it's the same,
because I don't think you have the space jump when I try and go there anyways. Maybe I'm just playing it wrong.
You get space jump when you do Aegon. You definitely have space jump by the time you're in Torvus.
Sorry, I was thinking Screw Attack. Apologies.
Either way,
gotcha. Yeah, sorry. I feel like this room always sticks out to me because every time, without fail, that I've ever played Metroid Prime Echoes, I go to this room thinking I can access the portal, and I can't. And it's just like, ah. So, yeah, Forgotten Bridge. Not my favorite room, but a pretty memorable one, I think, anyways.
Interesting. I'm not. We'll have to talk about that for the podcast because I'm not sure what you're. I don't know. I'm not sure which portal you're talking about or where the issue is. I don't know. I'm curious. So
we'll have to. I don't know. Maybe we'll stream it or something like that, and you can
correct
me as I'm doing it. All right. So a couple other rooms that we're talking about all these cool rooms. We should probably talk about the Torvus Temple. I mean, that's kind of like a pretty rockin' room in here. I feel like it looks cool. It's kind of got like the cool aesthetic that all the temples have, but like particularly like the underbelly of it, like the under sphere part I think is really sweet. That leads you into the Subterranean. Again, kind of a nice blend of organic and mechanical. I think this is probably my favorite portal. Or a temple room. I think I can't think of any others that are cooler than this off the top of my head. Aegon isn't that great, and I can't remember off the top of my head now what Sanctuary Fortresses looked like.
Sanctuary, that's the one with those little monkey robotic enemies that are really annoying that will like fire those projectiles at you, and they'll do splash damage even if you're on even if they fire on the underside of the platform, which is really annoying. The Sanctuary room is really sure. Yeah, the Sanctuary room, the coolest part about that is the Quadraxis foreshadowing with all the parts laying around. I think that's awesome, but in terms of practicality, I think this room is better. You also got a really cool space pirate fight right before the super missile.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I feel like that's a pretty sweet room here. I want to move into the Subterranean rooms that I think are pretty cool and just very quickly talk about those. Before I do, though, I've given like 8 in a row here. Any rooms that you want to talk about before we move to the Subterranean from the main area of Torvus here?
There's something about Training Chamber, which it's a really simple room. Like, you go into a boost ball slot, you spin the morph ball path, and I don't know, it's a really simple room. You got a couple of blogs that are chilling below. But yeah, there's something about that room that I really like, or just architecturally. It's also the room where you find out that Dark Samus has not in fact been killed after your first fight. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, it's got the cool blue stuff everywhere.
Yeah. And then also, I believe that room also leads back to the Sanctuary elevator, which is definitely the optimal route to go after Powerbomb Guardian.
Mm-hmm. To be honest with you, I actually think like all three like rooms in the subterranean level are pretty cool, pretty noteworthy. But yeah, I feel like Training Chamber is pretty cool. I usually remember the Dark Samus stuff, like seeing her like, you know, little Dark Samus bits floating everywhere is pretty sweet. But yeah, I feel like all three of them are pretty cool. The Hydro Dynamo Station I feel like is a pretty sweet room. It's like almost deceptively challenging. I feel like I feel like I always miss my jumps and when I'm trying to jump for like platform to platform there. But I feel like that's kind of a cool room to be in as well. The main, what is the other one? The main Hydro Chamber. I feel like that's like what's that one? It's got like a couple blogs in the bottom. Is that the one where you have to spin to get the morph ball the morph ball tunnel to line up to get to the other side?
I believe so. That one, if it's the one I'm thinking of, it's the one where you have to kind of go to light and dark ether, like back and forth to kind of use the morph ball cannon to get to the top. If I'm thinking of the same room.
Well, this is the room that you fight our pal the Alpha Blog, who is the lowest ranked boss in
yes
in this game. No, you know what? I'm mistaken. This is the center room. I'm sorry. This is the center room where you fight the Alpha Blog. The room that I was thinking of was the Gathering Hall. Is the room
Gathering Hall?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes more sense.
And then the Catacombs. The Catacombs is the other room too, which is kind of got those things going on. So I feel like all three of those are really cool. But like the thing that really sticks out to me, like I said, is like the tunnels that connect from like room to room. I just think it's like. It's so cool, and it's like kind of a nice homage to Meridia, because Meridia has those tunnels that like you could just take from the top of the area to the bottom as well. And I feel like there's cool stuff to do in like all these tunnels. Like there's energy tanks, there's missile expansions. I guess the one of them is just kind of whatever. There's nothing there, but I don't know. I feel like I really enjoy like doing these sections when I get there.
Oh yeah, totally. I agree. Well, especially because like in the Metroid Prime games, like, you know, a lot of those hallway sections, which are, you know, meant to like take you from one room to another, a lot of them can start to feel samey after a little bit. And these are like a really nice change of pace where, you know, not only are you using the morph ball, but, you know, you're actually doing some platforming and some puzzles along with it. You can get some goodies on the way, which is always nice. And there's also just a lot of cool backdrop scenery as well, which you typically won't notice because that's not where your eyes focus. But I do appreciate all that background detail.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I feel like and we're not done talking about the subterranean part, because I feel like that is just like the coolest area of this whole area. But I feel like each one of those rooms has like kind of something cool going on there. And then it's just like a cool structural layout that I always appreciate every time that I come back. I can't say that there's any rooms in particular that are sticking out for me in terms of like Dark Torvus Bog that I kind of like come back to and enjoy. Anything for you that you can think of?
So here's the thing. The rooms themselves, not really, but there's like specific architecture that's like found in Dark Torvus Bog that really gets me going. And some of it isn't even necessarily exclusive to the area, but like I still associate it with Dark Torvus Bog, like the Ingwerns, for example. Like those are also found in the temple grounds, or the Dark Temple grounds, excuse me. Mm-hmm. But like I always just associate those with Dark Torvus Bog, just because I think that's the first place you actually encounter them. And really it's just a glorified way to block a doorway. But I don't know, but again, I love the creepy, disgusting, gross, organic side of Metroid, and like those ingworms and just the sound design and all the squishiness of it. That just like encapsulates like, you know, one of my favorite aspects of Metroids. And so I just always love the just the ingworms from a design standpoint and a world building standpoint.
I think they're pretty cool.
Yeah, I love them. And then there's also the I can't remember what the names are. They're a required scan to get 100%, but in the light version of Torvus Bog, you have like these organic cameras that look like eyeballs, and you scan them and it reveals that like they're Luminoth camera systems, and they're all being linked back to Umos as like a guard of the outpost. But then you go to Dark Torvus Bog and you see those same cameras, but they're in blue, and you scan them, and these are revealed to have been captured by the Ing. And so every time you go to Dark Torvus Bog, it's like the entire Ing is spying on you in real time, and they constantly have their eyes on you, and there's something so unsettling that I love about that.
You know, I totally remember what scan you're talking about. I was desperately looking to see if I could find it before we were done. I want to say that they're the Sentinel crystals. Does that sound right?
I think that might
Sentinel?
be it. Yeah.
That's I love that stuff. I feel like that's just like so cool. It is kind of unsettling, isn't it?
Yeah. And again, it's one of those things where it's like, you wouldn't even think about it, but like, once you scan, it just adds this, this additional layer of like uncertainty to everything. And again, there's some really subtle sound design that you can hear when the eye moves as well. Just the subtle, and it just I love it. It just adds even more tension and just disturbing factor to the environment.
Kind of got those same creepy vibes as like when you first start Super Metroid and the after you get the morph ball, the little camera comes on. It's like it's kind of got the same energy as that. So yeah, I feel like that's pretty sweet as well. Well, as we do, let's switch over. Let's talk a little bit about the lore of this area. And I don't know that we know a ton, but what we do know is that Torvus used to be a forest. Obviously, the Phazon meteor that came and destroyed the planet turned this area from a forest into a bog. And obviously it's had a terrible impact on the planet, of course, but like this area in particular. I would have loved to see like even like a concept art, like an extra or something like that. And this will show up in the new book that's coming out, but like just like somebody had sketched Torvus Bog like before and after or current, you know what I mean? I would love to see that.
Yeah, I certainly hope that that appears in the guide, which we did talk about extensively last week. I already have 2 copies pre-ordered, one to keep sealed and one to open up and explore all those pages. Honestly, just as much as the art itself, I'm so excited to see that additional developer commentary as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm really stoked for that. Yeah, I ordered. Well, I didn't order a bunch of them. I only ordered one because I'm not. I'm a freak who likes Meridia. You're a freak who orders like 16 Metroid things. But yeah, that I feel like it just would be so cool to see like the before of Planet Aether, and to be honest, it'd be really cool to like revisit it and see the after everything's kind of been taken care of and the Dark King had been defeated. So yeah, we don't know a ton about Torvus before that, but what we do know is that it was a lush, beautiful forest. There was a large war that took place here in particular, which I'm also sure didn't help the terrain as well. And then yeah, Torvus was one of the final places to fall to the Ing. So the Ing finally took it over. So yeah, that's not a whole lot to go on, but as you were saying, like I feel like you could see a lot of like the leftover like Luminoth technology, a lot of the leftover Luminoth, like as we were talking about the sentries, stuff like that. It's a pretty cool area and very like Chozo in a sense that it's very harmonious with the environment that is obviously around it.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah, I also just think some of the Luminoth lore in this area in particular is really interesting because like you have because one of going back to Torvus Lagoon, one of the first things you see is one of those deceased Luminoth soldiers, which is there to show you the location of a future Sky Temple key. Mm-hmm. And so you get that little bit of lore drop like right as you enter the area, and it kind of sets the tone for the rest of your time that you spend there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just like as with everything, it's kind of sad because like as you read more of the Luminoth lore, it's like, well, we sent our best soldiers here, they didn't make it. We tried to defend this natural paradise, we couldn't do it. It is a little bit it's a sad tale to read here. It's very bittersweet because on one hand, you're reading about all this death and destruction, but at the same time, you throughout the course of the game are literally, I don't want to say undoing that because all those lives lost are still lost, but like you are actually like for the first time like really turning in real time, turning the scales
of these exact battles that you're reading about, which I always thought was a very interesting dynamic.
Now, the game doesn't explicitly say this. I'm just inferring it, but it almost sounds like the light crystals that you see in the Dark World were actually developed in Torvus, or at least that's where the scan that you get saying that they developed these light crystals are. So maybe there was somewhere that they were able to go ahead and develop these in Torvus. Although off the top of my head, I can't think of anywhere in Torvus that really sticks out as like kind of a research center or anything like that. But I mean, who knows?
Yeah, now I'm curious because spoiler alert, I'll be playing Prime 2 a lot of different times over the coming months for a couple of different reasons, but you'll have to wait and see what those are.
Yes,
but yeah, I'm curious. But yeah, I am curious now, and I definitely want to see if there's any rooms that might connect to that entry.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, just like everything on this planet, it's a little bit bittersweet. Let's shift our focus here, Doom. Let's talk about some of these enemies that we encounter here, and we've already talked about a few. We've talked about our pal, the Dark Hunter Ing, and in fact, we actually even talked about the Alpha blog last. I guess not last week, the week before that. We should probably start off with the blogs. Like, I feel like, to me, when I think of Torvus Bog, I think of, the blogs, as you probably make sense. You encounter so many of them, particularly in the Subterranean level there. That's the enemy that certainly comes to mind when I think of this area. Any other enemies, I guess, that stick out to you here?
I'm surprised they didn't call it the Torvus Blog. I already mentioned the piranha plant like enemies, which I can't remember what they're called, but I just I associate video game plant with piranha plant, so yeah, that's just the first thing that comes to my mind. The Grenchlers, which at first you think are just these kind of recolored versions of the She-Goths from Prime, but there's a little bit more work done, and we talked about this last week as well, but they jump now. They jump now, and that simple addition makes them like 1,000 times more terrifying, at least on your first couple of playthroughs, because it's like, oh yeah, I'm on the platform now, I'm safe, and it's like, nope. So I definitely a big fan of the Grenchlers, and that, as well as their dark counterparts as well. I believe you only encounter them in a single room though, if I'm not mistaken.
Let me see if I've got this right, dude. Does this sound right to you? I believe the enemy that you're talking about, the big piranha plant, is a sporb. Does that sound right?
Yes, the sporb.
The sporb.
That sounds correct.
Oh man, what an awesome name, the sporb. To be honest, actually, the Grenchler is a wicked name too. Yeah, you know what? I hate to say it, but they do jump now, and there's that one room. It's either the catacombs or it's whatever the other room is in the Subterranean level, the gathering hall. But there's like a bunch of them in that room, and they're all over you all the time. So that's a tough one for sure. Yeah, I don't like those ones are definitely the ones that come to mind for me. I will say that while there's not like a ton of enemies that I think are like, I guess memorable is a wrong word, but like for me, like I definitely think of the blogs and maybe some of the guys that you said. That being said, though, there is just an absolute plethora of boss creatures that you could fight in Torvus Bog and in Dark Torvus Bog. And
including our last place ranked boss.
Including our last place ranked boss, who we actually decided that this boss should probably not have been a boss in this game. But
yeah,
that's okay.
That's fair.
That's okay. We won't beat up on the Alpha blog too much, and we don't have to focus too much on the different bosses here, because we did just do a pretty extensive ranking of all of them. But I mean, my goodness, we are fighting. Let me see if I get all these bosses. The Alpha blog, we're fighting the Boost Guardian, we're fighting the Grapple Guardian, we're fighting Chaika, we're fighting the Power Bomb Guardian. That's a lot of bosses in one area.
At least the Chaika, the Chica, the Chica, whatever, however it's pronounced. I hope that's something that I want in this guide. I want a definitive pronunciation of that boss battle as the pronunciation stickler. That would be really awesome. Is it going to happen? Probably not. But I want to know how the heck you're supposed to pronounce that thing.
That would be nice.
because it's a fantastic boss and it deserves to be pronounced correctly, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think, like, unfortunately for Torvus, the bosses that it has, let's take Chaika out of this. I think the bosses that it has are, like, I don't know if a lot of people are going to point to any one of them as being, like, an amazing, like, top-tier boss. And to be honest with you, you could probably even say the same about Chaika. Like, I think it's a top 5 boss in this game, but I don't know that anyone is just like, oh, like, Chaika from Metroid Prime 2 is, like, a really, really top-tier Metroid boss, like, for the series in general. I don't know. Would you agree with that?
I think I agree. Although with Chaika, I don't know if like, I don't think most people would put that in their, like, top 5 or even their top 10, but I think if you mentioned it, I think most people would go like, oh yeah, that's a great boss. Yeah.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right. The other bosses, though, I feel like are, I don't know, like, I feel like when I think of Metroid Prime 2, one of the first things I think of is like, man, this game has awesome bosses, like really fun boss fights. But it's kind of strange because you look at all the bosses that you fight in Torvus Bog, and again, like, when I think of Metroid Prime 2, I'm just like, I think Torvus Bog is a really awesome area. But it's just like, man, it doesn't have great bosses though, which is, again, kind of weird because that's what I think of. And it's got, like, I would have ranked, Powerbomb Guardian and Alpha Blog, like, dead last and second dead last on my own list. And I was kind of with you saying that I didn't think the Grapple Guardian, was that far ahead of them. And I mean, the Boost Guardian, that's, the less.
I mean, I will definitely defend the Boost Guardian. Most people won't, though. Most people will probably put Boost Guardian even lower than Alpha Blog than we did on our list.
I mean, yes, it can be frustrating, but we won't rehash any of that. Like, we talked about that a lot a couple of weeks ago. I mean, I think he kind of gets a bad rap, but it certainly, I could understand if someone was like, this is a terrible boss, I don't like it. I think that's totally fine. But yeah, so, like, there is a lot of bosses that you get to encounter, but maybe it doesn't have that, like, A++ boss. But like we were talking about, the Chaika fight, I mean, that is an awesome fight. Like, particularly the second phase when it's in its full wings and it's flying everywhere, there's chaos going on, you're grappling from platform to platform. That's good stuff. That's what I like in a Metroid boss fight, where it's just kind of like the sense of urgency, a sense of, like, stuff coming at you, frantic kinetic energy. You're right. I think that's a great boss fight.
Yeah, and another thing I love about that fight is you use so much of your kit throughout that fight too, which I always love. I love when it's not just, a one lock and key situation. It's like, no, you got to use all of your keys to take down all of these locks, which is awesome. You're using the seeker missiles, you're using the grapple beam, you're using the light and the dark beams, you're using super missiles. Really the only thing that you're not using, which in Echoes is weird, is the morph ball. That's like the one ability that's kind of missing for this fight. But I don't even mind it in this fight because you're using so much of your other kit as well.
Mm-hmm. You know what is a missed opportunity is not using that gravity boost, though. You're right.
Yes. And
I almost actually wish that when you got the gravity boost, it would have allowed you into the sludge instead of the light suit, Like, I think if you could explore that earlier, it'd be really cool. I mean, it's fine. It's certainly not like a make or break thing, but it would have kind of been cool, like, to fight the original, like, the first form of Chaika, and you could actually just submerge yourself and, like, shoot maybe its vulnerable underside or something. I think it would have added a little something instead of just kind of waiting for Chaika to, pop up and wait for you to attack, basically.
Yeah, I think another thing with that is because obviously the main purpose of that is just to be like another gravity suit. The little boost thing is just kind of a whatever feature that doesn't really get utilized that much. But even in Prime 2, really the only water you encounter is in the Torvus Bog, and then those small puddles that you'll occasionally encounter in Dark Ether. But otherwise, there really isn't that much water in the game, unlike even the first Metroid Prime, where both Phendrana and Talon Overworld have quite a bit of water to explore through, and even a tiny bit in Chozo Ruins too.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Is there any water in any other area in Echoes?
I don't
think there is there?
Yeah, so Sanctuary Fortress and Aegon Wastes and the Temple Grounds none of those areas have water except for, I believe, Temple Grounds, and then Aegon. Again, in those dark worlds, they have those dark puddles that are very occasional and room specific.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't even think about like how dry, for lack of a better word, Metroid Prime 2 Echoes actually is. Well, I mean, as makes sense, like with so many bosses, there is like a ton of cool items that you can get here, which I appreciate. So, I mean, obviously you get your boost ball, you get your grapple beam, you get your power bombs. One thing, I don't know if you'll agree with this or not. One thing that I do think is like kind of a little bit of like is when you defeat Shaika. I feel like you're far enough into the game that you're really looking for like a cool upgrade. And I don't know if the Dark Visor is quite that. I don't know what I would have put there instead, but
I think I can agree with that for sure. Honestly, I probably would have swapped the Dark and Echo Visors because I want to use the Echo Visor in this game more, and the Echo Visor is so cool. So that's probably would have been my pick of those two. But yeah, I think I agree with that criticism.
I think I would have swapped him too. I feel like for me, to be honest, like I'm not the biggest fan of the Dark Visor. I just think it's almost kind of like a poor man's X-ray visor that only shows you like very specific things. Although it certainly does help for fighting those dark troopers. I will say that. But yeah, it's kind of just like I just went through this epic boss battle. Who I thought I beat this boss once, then I had to beat him again, and I just got this dark visor, which is it's just okay. But I mean, other than that, there's like a lot of cool stuff that you
definitely. If we ever did an Echoes power up ranking, it would definitely be on the bottom half of the list for sure.
I think so. You also get the super missiles here actually, and off the top of my head now, I can't remember what you do to get the super missiles. I want to say they're at the top of the temple,
space,
right?
It's the space pirate fight that we were talking about. There, you get ambushed by a ton of space pirates.
Oh and then.
Yeah, and then the super missiles, it's behind like a laser barrier that goes away after you win the fight.
That's right.
Which I think it's a fun fight. It's like this fun little Coliseum type of fight where you just have the pirates just kind of crawling in from all ends. You got a few of the aerial troopers as well. I think it's fun.
Yeah, I think that now that you describe it, I remember that. I think it's a pretty cool fight. That takes place in the Torvus Temple, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
where the
elevator
is.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty cool. It is kind of like a gladiator style fight. It feels like someone should be watching you like combat all these space pirates. So yeah, that is a pretty cool little place.
Yeah, and at the beginning of the fight, if you time a charged light beam shot right, you can even destroy the space pirate skiff that's right in front of you before it flies away and deploys more troops, which I think is a really cool tech there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a nice touch. I feel like I usually try and like scan it because I don't know if you have to have been able to scan this before this fight, but I feel like I'm always worried about missing it, so I always do it anyways.
You have a couple of opportunities to scan it, but the best opportunity is when you're in Aegon Wastes and you're going for the beam ammo expansion when you're in the turret destroying everything. There's a space pirate skiff that's not in battle that you can actually scan you can come back to the room and scan it. But yeah, it's on a platform that you have to destroy to go to the other side of the room, and so that's usually the best place to scan it when you're not in the middle of a heated combat zone where it's not about to fly off.
All right. Let's talk about the music. You're the music guy here, Doom. Why don't you take charge here? Lead us where you want to go, and we can kind of go from there. Obviously, we'll talk about the two main themes of Torvus Bog, which I'm excited for. But I don't know. Take the keys. Where do you want to take this?
Yeah, so Torvus actually appears in my music retrospective, both the light and the dark versions. So definitely, if you haven't seen that, check it out. Again, I'm very proud of this video. I put my heart and soul into it. But to kind of like paraphrase what I talked about in that video, Torvus is a lot of people's favorite track in this game. It's not mine personally, but it's still a phenomenal piece of music, and I really especially love the reverb in the light ether version of this track because it literally, particularly in the hi-hats, it really does give this sense of like pattering rain, and the snares have actual wet reverb applied to it that almost gives the sensation of like puddles forming, which I think is a really cool set to the piece. And I think it makes a lot of sense because if you've ever been in a forest like while it's pouring rain, all of that rainfall is going to be reverberating off the trees quite literally. Wood is constantly used in acoustic auditory devices today, whether it's a speaker housing or an auditorium, a church. All of these buildings are constructed with wood for the purposes of amplification. And I feel like the music really plays into that with wet reverb, to play into the rainfall, which I think is just such a cool touch that really just immerses you into that area. So I really appreciate the Torvus Bog theme for what it does there. And then it's not really unique to Torvus in particular. It's more of like all of the Dark World variants, but I kind of love how it takes like 2 or 3 of those main motifs and its Light World counterparts and just kind of just twists with them and distorts them. It reminds me a lot of those more atmospheric tracks from Metroid 2 on the Game Boy, where it's not really focused on creating melodies, or it doesn't really have a sense of meter. In fact, there's kind of a lot of counter meters happening where you'll have those melodies playing in one time signature, but then you'll have like a whole note that's playing off time in a completely another place to create this really, this jolting sense of dissonance that I've always loved about the Dark World tracks. That just, again, I use the word oppressive to describe Dark Ether a lot, and the music I think plays, a huge role in that as well, with just how uncomfortable and just atonal it is. I like using atonal as well to describe those Dark Ether tracks. And those are kind of the main environmental tracks that you'll encounter in Torvus Bog. And then of course you got to talk about the absolutely lovely Red Brinstar arrangement. Once you go to the catacombs, which I think I told this story before, but Super Metroid I did not play until after Echoes, so I actually kind of had the reverse experience with Echoes, where for most people they went into this area and it's like, oh my gosh, they brought back the Super Metroid track. For me, I didn't play Super Metroid until about 3 years later, literally like a week before Corruption came out, and then going to Red Brinstar and it's like, oh, that's where this theme and Echoes came from. That's awesome. Yeah. And yeah, of course it turns out it was the same composer that did both of those themes too, which I would find out years later as well. So yeah, I don't know what I know we have, varying opinions on Echoes music, but I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are on Torvus's area in particular, because I think there's a lot going on here that I really enjoy, at least.
Well, I mean, I think the main 2 themes are fantastic. I can't, I even listened to the Dark Torvus theme earlier today, and it just doesn't stick with me. And it's not to say that it's bad. It doesn't stick with me. You know what I mean? Which I think is kind of like by design, because I feel like the Dark Aether music is very, oh god, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, not atmospheric, but ambient a little bit. It's designed to be there and make you feel uncomfortable while you're listening to it, but it's not something you'd necessarily listen to on your Nintendo Switch Online music app. You know what I mean? And I think the main Torvus themes are absolutely something you can. So I mean, first and foremost, like I feel like let's just call it the main theme of Torvus Bog, the one that plays up in the the upper area. I think it's just a fantastic track. It's got like really kind of cool. I mean, it's got like the signature Prime synths that you come to expect, but it's got like I don't know how you describe it, but it feels like it's got that like that echoey part that feels like it's reverberating or something like that. Like it sounds really cool.
Yeah, the one.
Yeah. Do. Like it sounds like it sounds just like really cool and very unique to the area. And I mean, you'll pull your hair out at this, but like I feel like when I hear it, it's just like I feel like that sounds like a wet area, like to me. Like there's something about it that sounds like it should be in like a stormy, damp, dark area, which I think is just like they nail it so well. But yeah. I mean, the standout to me, it's gotta be the Subterranean track.
Yeah, and I'm not pulling my hair at all. No, I think that's a fantastic description of it. Again, like it all plays. I think it's that reverb especially that's utilized in this track that really gives off that sense of like a rainy atmosphere that I described earlier. But again, those synth patches also play a role into it as well. I'm a big fan I believe it's Past Mind. It plays the main motif, the one that almost sounds like a theremin, kind of, but rather than sounding like this, this
Sounds like
old school a theremin. You know when you're watching like an old school sci-fi horror movie and it plays the. I'm doing a really bad job impersonating.
Yeah, if you're
theremin,
making sounds,
like,
we can't hear you. It's Discord has cut you off, but okay.
Discord's like, no one needs to hear that. If you if you heard it, you would know what I mean. It's like it's in like very classic like 40s 50s like sci-fi movies, like The Day the Earth Stood Still. It's like very old school sci-fi, and it kind of the Past Mind patch, it kind of evokes similar themes to that, but it almost feels like done with modern sensibilities so that it doesn't sound like too retro and too cheesy. Like it sounds like something that could almost be emanating from the environment, but clearly not. It's a part of the music, which is what I love about Metroid music.
yeah. I mean, I think it sounds really, really great. I actually probably underrate the main theme of of Torvus Bog, because I was just so starstruck by the Red Brinstar remix. I will never ever forget. That was my main takeaway from Metroid Prime 2 the first time I ever played it, was like that Torvus Bog music was so awesome. I liked that honestly more than anything else, because at the time in 2004, I'd obviously played a lot of Super Metroid, and the track from that game, Red Brinstar, was my favorite track from Super Metroid. It was actually probably just one of my favorite tracks in general in any video game, and it still is. Although I would say it's almost a little bit overplayed now because it's showed up in so many different games. But like, this was the first remix at the time that I can remember, and I was just like, oh my god, this sounds like, to hear a track that you love so much but like reimagined in that classic Prime style, like synthiness, it was so incredible. And I remember just like literally sitting there submerged in water watching the blogs kind of like swim around. They hadn't noticed me yet. I was listening to the music and I was like, this is absolutely fantastic. Like this is like what I want from Metroid. So I definitely have an affinity for the submerged portion in general, just because you hear that theme playing so much. And it's probably one of my favorite Metroid Prime tracks, even to this day.
Yeah, I think another thing I appreciate about that Subterranean theme is that it doesn't just try to copy the Super Metroid theme. It, like, obviously it takes that main motif, but it just kind of works its way around and does its own unique thing to it.
Yeah.
It's one of the only tracks in the Prime games that has absolutely no percussion at all, which is insane. The original track has a lot of subtle percussion, but like the percussion's there nonetheless. This track has none of that, and I find that incredibly fascinating. Even some of the more direct covers in the Prime games I don't necessarily mind, but I definitely prefer when it does kind of go its own way. Like jumping to a completely different game, like the Space Pirates Appear theme in Corruption on the Pirate Homeworld. I love how they, the tempo is just slowed way down. It just kind of sits on like that main resting beat, and then you just briefly pop in with like those main motifs from Super Metroid. So it's there, but it does its own thing, and it's the same thing here with the Subterranean theme, where it's like it is very clearly Red Brinstar, but it's also more than that. It's its own unique interpretation, not necessarily an evolution, but a divergence, if you will.
Yeah, I think I know exactly what you like. Like when you hear Magmore Caverns, for example, that's a pretty faithful, like it doesn't really try and do a whole lot differently, which actually I feel like works. Like I feel like that works for that game.
Yeah, exactly.
But I do like, whenever I listen to a remix of a song, I do want it to feel like it's taking inspiration from whatever, but it's reimagining it into its own thing. So and I think that this does that quite well. So yeah, I mean I love I love the music of this area. Again, it's kind of like for me anyways, I kind of feel unfair almost, because it's like when I think of Prime 2 in terms of areas, in terms of music, and in terms of bosses, like a lot of what I think of is Sanctuary Fortress, and that probably does a disservice to to this area as well. So One thing that I always do love is the Subterranean track. It's just like, it's one of my favorites, and Red Brinstar is just one of my favorites in general. You know what? Now that I'm thinking of it, I can't think of what the boss theme, like what Chaika's theme, sounds like. What's your
remember
thoughts on that?
I love both of those boss themes. Do you remember the boss theme of Chorizo from AM2R? Because it reuses those themes. Obviously not the exact ones. They're covers of those themes, but
I kind of do. Actually, I'm going to be playing
if you remember,
some AM2R here in the next week. So
I was going to say, because if you remember Chorizo's theme, then you remember Chica's theme. So
okay. I'll give it a listen. I do know that I like it when I hear it, but it again, like a lot of it's funny because like a lot of Metroid Prime 2's music doesn't stick with me, but then like the stuff that does, I really love. Like it really sticks with me almost. And that's I don't know if that's by design or not, but that's how it is.
The first iteration of Chica's themes also uses the Past Mine synth patch as well, and it really emphasizes those theremin parallels, which I really like. It definitely does start to evoke more of that early sci-fi, but again, I think it does it in a way that it works though. I lost my whistle there for a moment, but
we have a tough time doing sound effects on this shit. Discord just blocks it right out.
Well, it didn't block me. I literally lost my whistle there. It's hard for me to whistle at high pitches, but
I'm a pretty good whistler, I have to say. I can usually do like a pretty easily. Let's talk about some expansions just to kind of finish it off, because I think Torvus has like a lot of like really killer expansions actually, which is something that I don't think that you can say for a lot of, I mean, definitely Metroid Prime areas. I would say Metroid Prime 3 areas. I'll say it, the Metroid Prime like games in general, I don't think expansions are their strong suit in the same way that they are in 2D Metroid, which I mean makes sense, because like the best expansions in 2D Metroid usually are some form of like Shine Spark or Speed Boost puzzle, something like that. But I think Torvus Bog has some really, really cool ones, and where I want to start off with is, I kind of touched on this earlier. There, in one of the tunnels, I think it's Transit Tunnel East in the Subterranean level, there is this just like absolutely awesome morph ball puzzle that you do underwater, and it's one where you need to essentially like bomb jump up to and you'd ride the waves of like the I don't know, the water stream, I guess
the air bubbles.
Yeah. And you need to hit a couple of these bomb slots, and it's quite hard actually, because like you're bomb jumping, but you're kind of, your rate of falling is like, you're never quite sure, because there's these things that are constantly pushing you up, so you fall slower than you think that you actually might. If anyone wants a video of what I'm talking about, go to OmegaMetroid.com. It's Energy Tank number 14, and you can see what I'm referencing. But it's just like really, really cool, and like, I mean, yeah, you get to listen to the music too, which is sweet. But I really love like morph ball, like anytime that you need to bomb jump or anything like that. Like I think it's like just such a cool thing, and I always feel skilled after I do it correctly, even though it's like not that hard to do. So I really love this expansion in particular.
Yeah, this one's it's like they took the energy tank in the sunken frigate in Prime 1, and they just amped it up to 11, where it's like, yeah, you're riding a ton of like these air bubbles, activating the bomb slots, and then redirecting the air bubbles to carve out new paths that you can go, but also blocking off previous paths. It's a really fun puzzle. I think that's a great pick for this area.
And I don't want to correct myself earlier, because you were talking earlier when you were talking about Torvus Plaza. I was confused. I thought you were talking about a different room. I was gonna bring this expansion up because this one is absolutely killer. Yeah, this is such a cool.
This one's a wicked
puzzle. I mean, like we got moving platforms. You gotta like very carefully spider ball across and make sure that you're where you need to be, and bomb jump to get to these moving It's a really cool like puzzle to do. And again, if anyone wants to check this out, it's actually conveniently Energy Tank number 13 on OmegaMetroid.com. There's just like, there's so much stuff going on, and I always am so nervous because this has happened to me before, when I'm on the part like sticking to the spider where like the little slot moves back and forth. It's kind of like just kicked me off before, and you go tumbling all the way down to the bottom of the plaza. just a terrible, terrible feeling whenever that happens. So yeah, I think that this is like maybe one of, if not one of the best, like spider ball puzzles in the entire game. There's a couple in Sanctuary which give this a run for its money, but like, I mean, this video is like 2 minutes long just of everything that you need to do, which is a long time to be doing a spider ball puzzle.
We could probably do an Omega Metroid episode in the future, just ranking like our favorite spider ball puzzles. I think we could do a definitive ranking on the Metroid Prime spider ball puzzles.
I think you could. Yeah, you might need video for that, but I think that would be a cool episode to do. Yeah, it's just like, it's a really cool puzzle. And you know, like, go look at OmegaMetroid.com. Check it out. Energy Tank number 13 and 14. Those are really cool. And since we're talking about energy tanks, I got to shout out one more. I talked about it earlier, but I again really love this tank. It's the one that is in the meditation vista, which is just past the room that we were talking about earlier. Whose name now I can't remember, but you basically have to screw
Torvus
attack.
Grove.
Torvus Grove, thank you. You need to screw attack this like platform like way out in the distance that you probably would never notice unless you're really eagle-eyed and looking for it. And it's just like, it's just so cool. I feel like that. Like, I wish that the Prime games would do more of this. Like, just kind of really make you look at the environment around and reward you for doing so. Because this platform is like, I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4 screw attack jumps away to land on it, and then you just go to this random floating energy tank that's hanging around. I think it's fantastic.
And you also have to time your jump really well, because the platform, it won't stay there very long. It's not a static platform by any means. So you kind of have to like pre-game it a little bit, if you will, like before your jump.
Yeah.
To absolutely nail it just right. And it feels really good once you're consistently able to get that down on your playthroughs.
Yeah, you have to be very careful with with your jumps there, because you could definitely miss like pretty easily. I don't think there's anything else energy tank wise that I wanted to talk about. Although I did want to give a shout out again to a room in oh god, now I've lost here. The Great Bridge. So this is the one that we were talking about earlier, Doom. This is what you were talking about that I was talking about. This isn't my issue with this room, but there is and I'm only bringing this up because there's a power bomb expansion here that, like, for me anyways, it feels like you're waiting for like forever to get this expansion, and until you finally do the Powerbomb Guardian when you're actually back in Torvus Bog after you've left. But I feel like I always feel very satisfied getting this, because there's a little tree trunk like Morph Ball Tunnel that you can go into, and like I keep on scanning it and scanning it and scanning it every time I go back, and every time it's like, no, you need power bombs in order to get this. So I always feel this really deep satisfaction every time that I finally have my power bombs and I go and finally get this stupid expansion. Oh yeah.
And again, you can hear the item in there too, so
yeah.
like, you know it's there waiting for you. It's just taunting you throughout the game. It's the same thing with the with that one missile expansion in the room just below it, with the portals where you have to constantly go in and out of the light and dark world. Mm-hmm. Like, you'll see that portal when you're in the Morph Ball Tunnel, and you can see the missile expansion there too, just taunting you. But once you finally are able to get it, it does feel incredibly satisfying.
And then yeah, like there's a couple Sky Temple keys that I think are pretty cool. I'd like nothing really, I guess, in particular, but like there's those are the ones that like you submerge yourself into the sludge in order to go get there. I think Sky Temple Key 2, Sky Temple Key 3, like pretty much anything that you need to fully submerge yourself into like the sludge, I think is like really, really cool, and just like something I wish you could do a little bit more in the game. It's just like a really unique visual, I feel like, to be in there and see everything, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's that one key that's in the Dark Wrenchler's room as well, where you have these little like robotic guys that you have to shoot the light crystals to get them to move out of the way. Which, in terms of puzzles, not that big of a deal. But I don't know, something about those little guys, I like them.
I think that's actually like a cool, like yeah, you're right. It's not really a puzzle, but it's like it's just kind of like cool. Like you feel like you're exploring underwater, which is pretty neat. Okay, last expansion I want to shout out there, and I'll turn it over to you. We talked about this one a little bit earlier. This is in the Gathering Hall in the Subterranean level. This is the one where like you need to do like the there's a half pipe in the center. So first and foremost, you need to actually drain the half pipe. So you need to drain all the water using a power bomb. There's a half pipe in there. Then you go to the ceiling, and you're kind of doing another. This would be another one that we could definitively rank in our spider ball puzzles. But like you need to boost over to the little platforms that are flying about. And long story short, you need to do it in order to deactivate a shield that's hiding a missile expansion. I love this kind of stuff. So pretty much anything that has like a cool spider ball puzzle, like I'm gonna shout out whenever we talk about expansions. And there's something very satisfying about like being up in the air and boost balling right into a morph ball slot and activating it.
Oh yeah,
it's a very satisfying feeling.
Yeah, I'm anything with a spider ball. I'm gonna enjoy it. Anything with a spider ball and the boost ball together, that's gonna be a top tier puzzle for me. So I'm all about that. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, I know I said last one, but I do want to give one shout out. There's a missile expansion. It's like one of the last missile expansions you'll ever get. I feel like it's one of the only missile expansions that actually uses the wall jump in order to get it. It's in Dark Torvus Bog. And like you use the screw attack enough in the game as like a jump, but I feel like and then this is in the Prime trilogy consistently, you never really use it as like a wall jump as really. It never lives up to its potential, I don't feel like. So this is one of the few ones where I'm like, cool. There's a wall jump expansion that you can get. I like it.
Yeah, Corruption definitely ups the amount of wall jump opportunities, which I really like. That's definitely my favorite part about the screw attack. But yeah, I do like the few opportunities that Echoes does give it. It's definitely still in its training wheel phase.
Yes.
I love the design of the wall jump areas in this game too. Like I like the texture and just the coloration used on those.
Well, that was pretty much all I wanted to talk about for expansions here. And to be honest, actually, that pretty much brings us to the end of Torvus Bog. Before we wrap it all up here, Doom, any final thoughts on Torvus Bog? And I guess maybe Echoes in general, now that, Metroid Prime 2 month has come to a close.
Yeah, Torvus Bog is a fantastic area and a fantastic game. It's not my personal favorite area, but I can definitely see why a lot of people do consider it their favorites. Because again, there's just a lot of really unique stuff in this area that I feel like stands out, but also just amplifies, I think, a lot of people's favorite qualities about Metroid in general. Whether it's, those artificial aspects, whether it's those more lush naturalistic elements, or even just, again, the gross, disgusting, and organic aspects of it. Everything about all of those attributes are here in some capacity in this. And also just like the environmental storytelling in general is just like a lot of fun to engage with. From someone who does love, getting into the nitty gritty of like the lore of Metroid 2. All of that's there. It does have the alpha blog, so it definitely has some lows, but I think the highs of this area definitely outweighs the lowliest of lows of the alpha blog or the boost guardian for most people.
I think so, yeah. I kind of feel like Torvus Bog had a little bit of a tough task because it was another water level. And I know that in Metroid Prime 1, like the water level is only half of Talon Overworld, but it's a pretty memorable water level. Like when you go to Crash Frigate Orpheon, like that's setting the standard pretty high. And like, I guess you could say like Aegon Waste is like another desert area, and Chozo Ruins is kind of a desert area, but it's kind of not either. I feel like Torvus is really the only area that was like, the same type of area as something that appeared in the first game. And I think that it did a really, really admirable job of like really differentiating itself and giving it a different look, a different feel, a different atmosphere than, because like, the Crash Frigate is just so serene and beautiful, and by design, Torvus is like completely the other way, and I just think it did a good job with that, and it's, Sanctuary Fortress was one that we talk about a lot, and rightfully so, but like that had never been done before in Metroid, so it's really easy for that to stick out and stand out, whereas this is kind of like you need to really think of how to make this area unique and its own, and I think it does a really good job of that. And like I said, I feel like maybe it gets slept on a little bit. Maybe I'm out of touch and it doesn't, and it gets the props it deserves. But I'm glad that we were able today to at least to kind of give it the, its time in the spotlight.
Yeah, I definitely know there's a lot of people in our community that have been desperately waiting for us to talk about this one. So happy that you guys are no longer waiting any longer, at least for a couple more days until we release this.
Until Wednesday, when our episodes are now coming out
Yes.
on. Yes. It is. What day? It's Monday as we record this today.
Yes.
So got a little bit of time to get this all thrown together. All right. Well, my friends, that is going to do it for us. A long-standing feature of ours makes a return next week that I'm excited to talk about. So we're going to be diving back into those logbook archives to cover a topic that I'm maybe we'll keep it close to the chest for now, but it's going to be a pretty fun show. So I'm excited for that one next week. And then that's going to be a cool time. We are going to get out of here. So thank you everybody for checking us out. Thank you everybody for listening. Give us a follow over wherever you are on social. We're like I said, we're posting over on Blue Sky now, so make sure that you're giving us a follow over there. We're at Omega Metroid. I am at Spiteri316 over there. Doom is on there as well, Doominal Cross. So give us all a follow. Give Dak a follow too. We just joined Dak City. The whole team is over there.
He's got 3 different accounts on there, so make sure to follow all 3 for his writing, his racing, and his main accounts.
And this man was like, I don't think I'm coming to Blue Sky. And then he makes like 3 accounts. I was like, okay. Okay. So give us a follow over on Blue Sky. That'd be awesome. And check us out wherever you get your podcasts. Go like, subscribe, recommend, rate, review, all of that kind of good stuff. If you got a Metroid fan in your life, tell them about the Omega Metroid Podcast. We're doing this weekly, and we're the only show that's making a weekly Metroid podcast. So show us some love. Check out OmegaMetroid.com for all of your Metroid needs. We got guides, maps, news, you name it, it's there. Everything that you could possibly wish for if you are a Metroid fan, including our Patreon, which if you really want to take your Omega Metroid love to the next level, check us out over at patreon.com/SPNet. The Great Metroid Area Ranking rolls on. We're past 60 areas ranked now. Ranking every single series or area in the series, so check it out. There's a lot of cool content for you to catch up on if you're a Metroid fan. And that, my friends, that's gonna do it for us. So until next week, everybody, take care.